What is up, everybody? We are live, but maybe not. You might be watching the replay. We're not live for you, but we are live right now. And it is the Green Book Revival because it feels like this book came out 3 years ago.
It really
Even though
does.
it didn't, but it feels like it did because time moves so quickly. And so before we jump in, let's quickly say we miss, right? We miss Brian. We're really sad that he can't be here.
Aww.
And he's going to have an incredible opportunity to go watch his son play for USA in some sort of World Baseball Championship where there's a
USA
gold medal at
baseball,
stake.
man. For those that don't know, Brian's son is Cam is a relief pitcher, and
Yep.
and a heck of one to be
Really
still
good.
chasing the
A
dreams. That's a
lefty.
big deal.
Just slinging it. And so we're coming back with the Rethink Everything revival, the Green Book revival, if you will. And last week was week number 1. This week is week number 2. And I'm so honored to have the three of you on here with me. I don't even think we need to waste time with introductions. Everybody knows who you guys are at this point. And if they don't, freaking pay attention once in a while, you know? So let's just jump in and just have a fun conversation about personal branding. It is November 20th, 2024. We're going to blink and it's going to be Christmas, and then it's New Year's, and then it's January, and then it's February, and everybody's going to be like, oh no, I'm still not doing video, and I'm still not doing a lot. Like, they're going to freak out. So let's try to help people not freak out and give them some tips and tricks, some refreshing of a mindset on how do you guys, let's get personal first. How do you guys assess your own personal brand as the year comes to an end? And how do you look at it and go, okay, this was good, this worked, this didn't work. In concept, it was good, but it didn't hit. Like, what does that look like for you guys?
I can talk about it. So I track engagement rate on socials. And I know
Okay.
Brian's been doing a lot of publishing about this. I wish he was here so we could talk about it. But a few months back, I posted a video about one of the most important stats that you can track that no platform is going to give you natively when you look into the analytics. And I look at it as engagement rate. And what I calculate engagement rate to be is the number of impressions that any particular post gets compared to the number of engagements, meaning likes or reactions and comments. Put those together, compare them to the number of impressions, and that's going to do a pretty decent idea of showing you how that content is resonating with the audience that it's reaching. So I look at this stuff both from a granular perspective and like an overarching perspective. Brian's been doing like the 90-day view.
Yeah.
No pun intended. But the 90-day view is a great thing to look at because it's kind of a overarching look of your strategy over the last 3 months. But if you really put a lot of effort into a specific piece of content, I know I've done this. Every content creator has done this. You put something together and you're like, man, that's a banger. That's going to do some work. Let's go. And you post it, and it does nothing. And it's just dead. And it turns out that most of the time that happens, it's because you were making that piece of content for you, not for your audience.
My bangers rarely bang.
Because they bang for you, and you are not the target audience that you're trying to reach.
It's so true.
100%.
So I love looking at engagement rate because that's going to give you a pretty good idea of how your content is resonating with the audience that it's reaching, regardless of how many followers you have. So the number of impressions doesn't matter. The number of views doesn't matter. The volume of those things, all those little hits of dopamine, don't matter. The thing that matters the most is how it's actually connecting with the people that you're reaching.
And I'm a great example of that. When Brian put out that list, or when he actually reached out and said, hey, give me your figures, give me your data. And I actually was, I was one that gave it to him. And I was like, I messaged him and said, here it is, but I'm going to be way on the bottom of that list because out of all of you, I have the least amount of followers. Absolutely. I mean, I don't even have like 2,000. And I was number 2 on that list when he first published it. And I was like, how is that even possible? but the content that I was putting out was engaging for the audience that I do have.
And somebody else in the top 5 right there along with you had like 20 or 30,000 connections or followers. So like it wasn't weighing heavily towards people with a lower follower count. It was very agnostic across all people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So JD, you have the distinct pleasure of babysitting loan officers every day. And if anyone at Lower is watching, I'm sorry, I'm not sorry, probably. But you get a front row seat to, like, us, and you're great at teaching this stuff, like we all are. But then you're one of the ones that's actually down in the trenches, like helping implement this stuff with LOs.
Mm-hmm.
Man, how do you take what Mike and Donna just said and like break that down to a kindergarten level to help an actual LO that really just wants to be doing loans factor that into how they should be doing content?
Well, the conversation with an individual loan officer usually starts with me asking a lot of questions about what their impression of what social media is going to do for them. And just kind of use that as to establish a baseline of like, all right, what's the mindset that I'm dealing with here? And the ones who have not put a whole lot of thought into that question usually respond with, well, I want it to bring me more business. Okay, we can do that. And then we go down a particular path. Other times, and this is the mentality that I love, is the folks that say, I've never prioritized getting engaged with social media, but I know I need to start. Help. Like the teacher in me just does a massive pump fist when I hear somebody say that, because that is a mindset that I can work with. Somebody who is dead set on it delivering them 6 apps next week, a little bit more of a challenge to get that person thinking the right way. But when you're able to take like the measurements that Donna and Mike were just talking about, when you take that kind of analytics, they're not ready for that. But when you can kind of drill down on using examples, so like we've got several loan officers who have in the high tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers to their account. Well, they've invested the time, money, and resources into building that size of a community. If the loan officer who's just getting going ever points to that and say, "Oh, I want the kind of success that Justin sees or that Alexa sees," then I say, "Okay, they've got 6 figures in their follower account. Let's just fast forward and let's say that you've got 6 figures of followers right now. If every single one of those followers reached out to you today and said, I want to start a mortgage app, would you be able to serve them?"
Nope.
Well, there's always no.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, then why do you want that big a book of followers? Well, and then you keep drilling down, and it really ties to, well, that's how social media works. No, it isn't. Social media is a platform that amplifies your voice, that allows you to connect with multiple people one-to-one. It doesn't have to be 150,000 followers. It could be as little. I mean, Donna, you were kind of mocking your own followership that you're not at 2,000, and I think that's great. I think because I've seen the content you put out, and it's very impactful, and it's very direct, and it's very authentic to who you are, and your community will resonate with that. It's the same. So it's the same coaching that I provide to the loan officers. Tell them, look, find your tribe and find the people who resonate with the messaging that you're putting out there, provided that it's authentic to who you are and how you operate as a loan officer.
Yeah,
the deals will come eventually. Where it starts is with committing yourself mentally to the consistency. And if you put out a post and it gets 5 likes over the course of 2 weeks, don't get discouraged. Stop, ignore those kinds of things for now, but instead figure out what your message is and how that will resonate with the community that you're trying to build.
And to expand on that, the authentic to you message works for you in so many ways that you don't even think about when you're first starting out. I always like to talk about it as a natural lead filter. Like, just imagine the people reaching out to you to do business only being the people that you really love doing business with and can build strong relationships with. Like, nobody's going to reach out to me for a one-on-one if they hate Marvel Comics and Star Wars. They're not. because
That's
this is
why
who I
we've
am. These are
never
the things
had-
that I love. And if I'm
Wow.
insufferable to people, great. I don't want to work with them because I don't need business from everybody on the planet.
That's right.
I want the calls like I do get with people that I've never met before that usually start with 5 to 10 minutes of banter about comic books and Star Wars.
Yep.
Because they feel like they know me. And those people are people that have something in common with you, and they're just going to be easier to do business with. They're going to be easier to transact with, build relationships with. Like that's exactly what you're looking for. So that authentic messaging works as kind of a gravitational force or a magnet that pulls in people that have things in common with you. And that is like one of the biggest, sorry for the comic book reference, but it's one of the biggest and best superpowers that everybody has that we can all tap into.
Yeah, 100%. I had well, it was actually Scott Payne who will be on a future episode of the Green Book Revival. He texted me a few months back and he was like, it was the most random text I've ever got, because he said, bro, you're so good at walking and talking videos, but you never do any. Like I've only seen you do a couple. And I thought, man, that I don't do
random.
it. It is very random, right? But I thought, I worked hard on my background. I like my background. I'm proud of my background. And so I traditionally want to sit and do videos where I'm prepared to do so. And Scott was the one that was like, bro, you just need to get out and walk and talk more, which, Mike, you do a phenomenal job of pretty much daily. And that's what people like. That's what makes us relatable is those moments. And so what I want to, we could just tell stories and talk about random stuff for this whole thing. But something you said, JD, was you said you love when the LO just says, I need help. To say I need help requires us to have a little less ego, right? To even admit that. And then, Mike, part of your process inside of Red Button Media is you will jump on Zoom with your one-on-one clients that you're doing video content for. And then you ask them questions. They answer them through Zoom into the camera. Talk about like the transformation you see of people. Yeah. That at first they're uncertain of this. Does it even look right? Is this going to work? And then their willingness to just go, Mike, I trust you, bro. Whatever questions you have, I'm going to answer them authentically. Like, what are some of the things you have to say to them to kind of work them through that process?
Yeah, James, you'll like this too, because James has been through these sessions. So interject if I forget something. But when I'm coaching somebody through a content session, it's not Zoom, by the way. We use something else that records in higher quality. So don't worry. To all my clients, we're not just using Zoom.
Anyways, that's what Brian View said to me.
But it's very Zoom-like, and
we need to fix
if that's how it resonates in people's minds, then that's fine.
It's Zoom Max.
It's like like saying Uber. Come on, guys. It's like saying Uber for every car service.
Zoom Max Plus Extra, whatever the subscription's called these days, right?
I apologize.
So no, it's all good. So when we're walking somebody through creating content in a first session with somebody, like they're just getting used to this video content thing, the first barrier is to get them as comfortable as possible. So I'm going to give you the framework. Here's what I do with every single client to get you comfortable on camera right away. Number one, literally, you're going to feel silly as heck. Take a deep breath and shake it out. Like, it does a lot of work. We carry a lot of tension in all these places. Take a deep breath, shake it out, get your shoulders closer to the floor than your ears. It's so interesting how these shoulders creep up and up and up and up when we get tense, right? So deep breath, shake it out, shoulders down to the floor. What we keep an eye on is eye contact through the camera lens. It's weird because you're talking to this weird digital cyclops that's just staring back at you. But at the end of the day, the mindset that you need to get in is that the person you're talking to, and make no mistake, you're not talking to a group of people. You're not speaking to a captive audience. With your video content, your audience is one person on their phone or their computer, and they're going to scroll past you faster than you could ever imagine if you're not absolutely fascinating and providing value and adding to their day. So you need to be in the mindset that you're just talking to one person. And their eyes are that camera lens. So you got to have eye contact with the camera lens. So you're not making a bunch of content that has people saying, hey, my eyes are up here. That's the last thing that we want. We're also looking for hand position. So a good home for your hands, we always say, is arms of the chair, tops of your thighs if you're sitting down, down at your side, maybe in your pockets, but that gives you a little too much to fiddle with. Have a home for your hands. If you're a greasy Italian like me and you love talking with these things, let them fly, baby. That's you. And that's what we want to come through. But if you're not comfortable with all of this, have a home for them, because if you don't, that's when you see videos where people get stuck in prayer pose or with diamond hands or scratching their face all the time and different things like that. So when we're coaching, we monitor for all those things: lighting, audio, hand position, shoulders, eye contact, all of these things we're constantly monitoring for, which is really why you want to work with a coach, to accelerate that kind of growth curve for you. But if you're just doing this on your own, those are really good ways to start. And then within the session, we're not just asking you questions and getting perfect takes from you. Even if you're making content on your own, this is a big thing that you can do. Realize that all video content is editable. You do not have to be perfect. So if you have a piece of content that you want to make that's the top 3 home buyer misconceptions and you have 3 points, have 3 bullet points off to the side. Deliver a hook. These are the top 3 first-time home buyer misconceptions I see all the time. Stop. Breathe. You nailed the hook. Great job. Because we can edit all this pause out. It's okay. And then reference your notes. Get your thoughts together around that first bullet point, and only that first bullet point. Deliver that with passion, with authenticity, and then stop and breathe. You're shooting for the edit. You're not shooting for this perfect one-take wonderfulness that is basically catching lightning in a bottle. Like, nobody should be held to that standard, including me. And I do this all the time. So shoot for the edit. Those are the tips. Breathe, hand position, eye contact, get conversational, make sure you're speaking from the heart, and don't be afraid to take breaks and then just cut those breaks out in the edit, because we've become accustomed to jump cuts and getting through deep breaths and things like that. Anytime I cut out a deep breath in a video, I just think of that as respecting my viewers' time.
Yeah.
I want them to get to the next thing without waiting for that half a second for me to breathe. I don't want to keep you around for that.
So many people get discouraged because they can't do it in one shot. And then they just want to stop and not do anymore. But it's like, don't worry about that. Don't focus on that. Just like you said, breathe, stop, and continue. Yeah. Because edits are so easy now. Anyone can edit videos themselves. I mean, download CapCut. You don't have to use Adobe Premiere and use the crazy apps like we do. Anyone can learn how to use CapCut.
And CapCut is available on Windows and Mac and mobile. And it's free on all platforms. So like, there's no excuses. If you have the time to learn it, you can learn it.
Mike, I'll say this just by way of endorsing the guided content sessions that you lead, is that one of the surprising things to me, and I've been a part of several, I've also been a fly on the wall on several, just to kind of help guide the conversation, see how it unfolds when we're doing it for somebody else at the company. But one of the things that I absolutely love that you're a master at drawing out of people is the content that ends up being produced is rarely ever the initial banter or them answering the first question about why they do what they do, that kind of thing. It's the deeper cuts that we get into, where somebody gets to a point where they forget that there is a video camera sitting in front of them that's recording everything that's coming out of their mouth. And instead they hear Mike's question and they hear Mike drilling another level deeper and another level deeper. It's kind of like Todd Duncan's high trust interview. It's that process of drawing out that personality from that person. And some of the best cuts that have come have been from some of those off the cuff conversations that happen kind of spontaneously as a result of just the interaction. And there've been any number of video final cuts that you've put together for us, where I've gone back and watched it and just shook my head going, this is freaking brilliant. And because that person who was speaking completely forgot about the fact that they were recording a video. And
the brilliance is all them.
Yes.
Like it's in there. You just need to get out of your own way and let it out.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, the last session we did with Connor, right? We had 5 pieces planned. We ended up with 8.
Yeah.
Just because things happen. Things happen organically. And if you're out there and you're making content, you're on your own, you're not working with a coach or anything like that, you're just kind of doing it yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Just don't discount your own thoughts and inclinations.
Mhm.
Because if you're in the middle of making a piece and you think to yourself, oh, this might be an interesting thing to say, it is. Say it.
Mhm.
That is an interesting thing. It might even be its own piece of content. You get an extra one, bonus, right? But like, if you think it's going to be interesting, say it, because the worst thing that can happen is that you watch it back and it's not interesting and it lands on the cutting room floor and you never post it anyway. So, I mean, there's digital memory and storage space doesn't cost us anything these days.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So last week, I'm assuming you all saw it. Rocket came out and said that essentially overnight they could scale to 150 billion in production, and that's unbelievable to even think about.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think any of us are calling them liars because of the tech they have, the money they have, and so on the surface, like, that's kind of scary to the loan officers that we work alongside every single day. The moment I heard it, my thought was, holy crap, this makes personal brand even that much more important, because that's the only thing you're going to ultimately do better than a company like Rocket, right? Is out relationship them, out personal brand them. Did y'all see that news last week? And when you saw it, like, what were the first things you started thinking about in terms of, like, man, if these LOs don't start doing that, like, they better get their crap together, because the Rockets of the world are coming for them, and they're going to out technology you if you don't out relationship them.
I'll jump in first. From my perspective, as head of marketing for Lower, when it comes to the folks that are in our local branches, that are in all the local markets, it's something that I read the article, read through the announcement, and it didn't shock me, it didn't surprise me, and it also didn't scare me. Yeah. Because the kind of consumer that tends to gravitate to an experience with a big, huge call center like Rocket, they serve a purpose, but it's not necessarily the same kind of consumer that is going to gravitate to one of our retail loan officers, or really even our D2C channel, because our D2C at Lower, that division, they are not your typical churn and burn call center model. They take the same mentality in educating the client, educating them on all different mortgage strategies that are available to them, and really take care in servicing them and educating them in the right way, in the same way that our retail folks do. So it's a very symbiotic relationship between the two divisions, which I love. But to your specific question about what this means for the loan officer, for the retail loan officer long term, that we do a lot of this individual personal branding coaching for, it just means that they had better get really, really well defined on their value proposition in terms of what differentiates them from somebody going to a call center. Now, somebody who's just looking to lower their rate on a rate term finance, that's a difficult win for the retail loan officer to just summarily say, I'm better than that. Or just throw out some phrase of like, oh, you don't want to work with you don't want to work with Rocket, work with me. If they haven't clearly defined, if they don't have that established relationship, it's going to fall flat. So the time to start, well, technically the time to start in building that kind of value proposition with past clients was 6 months ago, or a year ago, or when you first closed them. But if you haven't started that yet, if you haven't started that process and being able to nurture those clients even after the closing, then you better be taking down that tagline that you've been using that says, I want to be your lender for life, because it's not true. So if you're going to use that tagline, if you're going to use that descriptor as the value that you provide, then you better have a very dialed in process for how to nurture that client after the close, how to educate them, and do those annual mortgage reviews, and get them on a platform like HomeBot that's delivering very, very valuable information, all those things. And everybody's flavor is different. So figure out what that structure needs to look like for you and begin implementing it today, because because those kinds of announcements are not going to slow down. They're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. UWM, Rocket, they're usually the first ones to make those announcements. And then there's a whole bunch of people making announcements that are basically being considered also rans. And so you need to have your system, your value proposition, and the benefit and the solutions that you provide to your clients really dialed in, and communicate that on a regular basis. Social media is one of the best ways for you to do that out and put that out there.
That's good.
I love that.
Yeah.
I would add on by saying that if you're worried about competing with a company like Rocket, you have nothing to be worried about. Their clients aren't buying the same thing as your clients are. And I say that in a very specific way for a reason. Because what you think you're selling is not what your clients are buying. You are selling a commodity. I mean, let's be honest, right? Mortgages are a commodity. They've been completely commoditized. All the money comes from the same places. All our rates industry-wide are roughly in the same range. What you're selling is the service and the journey down the road that is necessary to secure that commodity for your client. Mm-hmm. So what you are selling is a solution to a problem. You're not selling a commodity, because what your customer is buying is a solution to a problem that they have. And the customers that are going to be inclined to work with a Rocket call center or digital solution, or those are people that are comfortable with transacting in a way that doesn't involve tight-knit relationships, trust built over a long period of time, a certain level of hand-holding through the process, familiarity with someone local. Rocket's not providing that. And they don't need to scale to those levels, because they know that there's a big enough segment of the market that wants what they're selling. You just need to find the market that wants what you're selling. And those value props are going to be wildly different than a company that can scale to 150 billion overnight. So I don't think you have anything to worry about, because you're not actually competing with them. To James's point, dial in your value props in a way to where you're serving the people that aren't in the market for a solution like Rocket or a like company is offering. And you're never going to run into that competition, because you're growing in parallel at that point.
Yeah. And I'll add, I mean, James, you really covered what I wanted to talk about, which was nurturing.
Right.
No, you're totally fine.
Dang it, James.
But nurturing your clients, right? And educating them. So I'm gonna quote Tony Thompson recently at the MMLA, the Michigan Mortgage Lenders Association conference back in August. He said something that's really stuck with me, and it was that your consumer, your borrower of yesterday is not your consumer or borrower of tomorrow. They want more information. They want to be educated. Not that the previous ones didn't necessarily, but it's not the same. And it's with Rocket, I don't feel like Mike said it too, right? That it's a separate type of client. It's a separate type of borrower. It's a separate type of service that they're providing. And with everyone else, it's more about educating. It's more about taking the time and, like you said, James, nurturing them. And so that goes with what Tony was saying, is that the borrower of tomorrow wants that education. They want more information. And so you do really have to take the time and work with them on all of that. And they'll trust you and they'll stick with you because of that.
So I want to give y'all a real life scenario. This morning, this is all true. This morning, I met with a lender who has done really well previously. He's almost 2 decades into the industry. He's unbelievable on video. His video editing is really good. In my opinion, if you go look at him, his brand is phenomenally done. And yet we're on Zoom this morning with him saying, man, like, it's just rough out there right now. And I don't know how much longer I want to do this. On the surface, his stuff looks pretty flawless. And so from a personal brand perspective, like, can you swing the pendulum too far in one direction of like all you're doing is really over edited stuff that's super fancy and really well done versus being all the way over here, which is always raw, always real. Like, how do you coach someone through, and or just what's your belief around the appropriate place for that pendulum to ultimately land when it comes to the way we edit, the way we show up?
I think that question and that conversation is so important because it uncovers so many different things. And the main thing that jumps out at me is you and that lender, when you talk to them, when you're asking the question right now, why isn't anybody talking about the message they're delivering? The edit doesn't matter. The edit just has to be good enough to get people to not go away.
Yeah.
The audio quality doesn't matter. That just needs to be good enough for people to not get annoyed with the sound and scroll away. What matters is the message. Flashy edit or no edit, who cares? It's the message that he's, or they, I don't know who it was, the message that they are delivering. So when you look at a personal brand face value, ooh, flashy edits, ooh, they're doing good. Oh, they're showing up all over the place. That's great. But are they showing up in a way that resonates with the people that they actually want to be doing business and starting conversations with? Are they showing up in that way and also solving their problems and advising them? Or are they just showing up talking about the latest home buying hack or tip or trick? You know what I mean? Like, are they really showing up in a meaningful way? I would venture to guess that if you dive into that content, the messaging is hollow and it's not resonating with an intentionally defined viewership or target viewer.
Yep.
You know, once you start to kind of game plan your messaging, starting with who exactly am I talking to? What problem do they have? What's their open wound problem that needs to be fixed, right? On a day-to-day basis, they wake up and go, oh, I just wish. I'm a renter. I just graduated college. I can afford a house payment here. I'm paying rent right now. I just wish I could own a home without whatever down payment they think that they need. Like, is that the problem that you're solving? Because if so, start by saying, hey, recent college grad who's renting in this town, don't you wish you could buy a house without this huge down payment? Like, that's right off the jump. You're identifying a problem that your target viewer has. That's going to get them to pay attention. And when it comes to scaling content and fancy edits and hiring things and doing volume and all of that, it gets really easy to slide back into this comfortable applies to everybody type of messaging. But when something applies to everyone, it's not resonating with anyone in particular. So it's not going to make anybody want to reach out. All it's going to make them do is take your content and send it to the person in the industry that they actually trust and say, hey, is there some validity to this? Mm-hmm. And then they're going to go work with their expert. You got to present yourself as the expert who serves exactly that person. And the great thing about doing that is that once you have a set of defined target viewers, target clients, target referral sources that you really want to be reaching, then you have a set of messaging that you can deliver to each one of those people. And that just multiplies and explodes the volume of content that you're able to make, because the down payment conversation happens differently for each of these 5 different people. So that's 5 different videos, not one. And you're providing some actual custom messaging. So I would say that look less at the edit, look less at the platforms, look less at the overarching personal brand and what you think it may look like at first glance, because first glance isn't what creates conversations. It's Mike, that deep dive into the messaging. There you go.
Look at that.
There you go.
You're on it forever.
Thank you.
Until I get a new ball. But
I get it. It's fine. Maybe you just need a bigger baseball.
Oh, yes.
Get you like baseball. A basketball-sized baseball.
Like basketball. I'm
There
sure I
you
can
go.
find a basketball somewhere.
That's right. That's right. And then that could be your like yearly notepad. It'll just live there for a while.
Yeah, Mike, that's so good. Guys, what would y'all add, right? To reset to people that may have jumped on in the middle of Mike. Right. Met with a lender this morning, 19 years in the industry, incredible on social from, the glamour perspective, from the things that we know don't really matter, incredible edited videos, but not a ton of traction. What's the advice to that person?
I would add that. So the only thing, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Mike said, or most of it.
What do you disagree
I want to
with?
know what you disagree with. There we go.
The only thing I would say is, I know you said like, don't worry about the platforms. I would say maybe take a look at the platforms. Like, are you using the same type of content across all platforms? Because I would say if it's too buttoned up, if it's too perfect, then maybe it's not resonating with the audience. Like on TikTok, obviously, if you're using something that's way too edited, maybe you need to be a little bit more raw and unedited on TikTok. Just my 2 cents. Or maybe elsewhere too. Maybe it is way too buttoned up. Maybe you need to have a little bit more of the raw footage on there and don't have it so perfect. That way you can relate more with your audience.
At the end of the day, with that type of content, there's endless variables, right?
Yeah, there is.
There's editing style. There's where you are when you're shooting it. There's the camera or phone that you're using while shooting it. There's the microphones you're using, what you're wearing, the messaging you're delivering, how things are framed. Is the camera farther away from you or closer?
What are your angles?
These are, don't make people look up your nostrils, right? So, like, all of these are things to test. Like, marketing is a big, huge experiment. That's one of my favorite parts about it. Like, I feel like I'm just a messaging scientist. Like, it's like you just like get all these variables and test them against each other everywhere that you can and observe the results. But one thing that I can say about highly edited, super buttoned up content is that the person who makes it looks at that back and typically says, that's how I want to show up. And that's great. But you're making that content for you. If you're not asking yourself, how do they want me to show up for them? Then you're doing yourself a disservice. James, you are on mute, my friend.
You are muted.
Sorry about that. The high polished stuff, great for websites, not so great for TikTok, to Dana's point. There were two words that just came screaming to the front of my brain when you were laying out the conversation, Kyle, and that is diversity and evolution. Diversity, Mike's already covered that. Dana covered that as well. Diversifying your content so you can mix in the high polish with the raw, just to show those differences. I'll give you a quick example. How many of you saw the post that realtor out in South Carolina made, where the title caption was, I had my Gen X or Gen Z intern edit this video, and it was just him inhaling. It was just jump clip after jump clip of him.
I haven't seen that.
It was awesome. Really funny. And it went and it got millions and millions of views. The question I want to get an answer to is, how many deals did he get as a result? Probably a few, but he probably didn't like immediately skyrocket to number one realtor in that particular brokerage overnight or within the span of a month, simply because of that video going viral. It was a funny video and had some notoriety. I saw that he was like interviewed by a few news stations about it, and so gave that guy his 15 minutes of fame. Now, what's his task? Is his task to double down on that kind of humor content? Like, did that reinvent a new brand for him specifically, where he becomes the funny realtor video guy? Or does he keep delivering the message? Because I did go to his channel. I went and looked at his other stuff. He puts out really good stuff, and it's not super high polished. But it's valuable information, and it got a decent amount of engagement. Paled in comparison to the one viral video that he had, but I guarantee you, all the other content that he's been doing is going to deliver way more value to his community, to his audience, than that one video that went viral. And that's what everybody thinks they need to have happen when they go into engaging with social media. No, you don't. Chances are very, 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 very like infinitesimally slim that you're ever going to produce a video that actually goes viral by whatever definition you want to apply to it. The second word was evolution. Give yourself the grace to allow your process, to allow the end result of what you're putting out on social to evolve over time as you try and push the envelope, experiment with new things, and just see what resonates, and double down on the things that work well and discard the things that suck. And so allow yourself that kind of thing. So those two words, diversity and evolution, were what came to my mind.
I love it.
Good.
Yeah.
And if it's Garen Dadgum Teed, then
That was the family
that's
joke.
unarguable,
I like that
man.
one.
Just go with it.
I like that one too. Yeah.
It's the
Hey.
former youth pastor that's hosting this. That's
So
cleaning it up.
so we're seeing, at least I'm seeing, if I'm wrong, y'all correct me. But I'm watching a lot of the big celebrities now, right? You've got the Kelseys, you've got, Logan Paul has been podcasting forever. You're seeing all these really big personalities get into podcasting. Do you see that as a viable option for normal people like us, right, that aren't famous with millions of followers? Would you suggest that as a personal brand enhancement to either host a podcast where maybe it's hyperlocal and you're interviewing people locally, or you just try to say, you know what, in 2025, I'm going to try to be a guest on a podcast a month? Is that a good strategy now? Is it just working for famous people? Like, how do y'all feel about that?
I think
it's like with
podcasting
any
and collaboration is
strategy.
fantastic.
What's your goal? What do you
Yeah.
want to get out of it? And if your goal is for notoriety, sure, you'll get what you're seeking if that's what you want. But unless there's a specific strategy around how it's going to contribute value to your potential audience, I think it's going to fall flat. And second of all, if you cannot commit the time to do it consistently because a podcast is a long-term play.
Yep.
It's not a short-term lead gen strategy. And so unless you can devote the time, the resources, and the manpower it takes to do it, I would say don't do it.
As of 2 years ago, Spotify published a thing saying that the average new podcast posts 10 episodes before stopping.
Yep.
So there's a big commitment factor there. I have two things on podcasts. One, as it pertains to hosting, another as it pertains to guesting. I love the thought of hosting a hyper-local podcast. Gary Vee calls this being the digital mayor of your town. And I love that concept. If you can host a hyper-local podcast and you can use that as an avenue, as a voice for all like the small business owners in your town to talk about what they're doing, put out the information, not only do you gain access to their audiences, but the number one thing that almost every single person who starts a podcast undervalues, but then learns very quickly, is the best thing that comes out of it is the relationship with the people you have on as guests.
Yeah.
Like you're making that podcast episode for an audience of one, and it's the person who's on your show. If it gets 12 views, it doesn't matter because you've gotten that person for a one-on-one conversation for an hour or whatever it is, and you're getting to know them, and referrals come from that. Business comes from that. Those relationships are strong. So use podcasting to build relationships. And I love the hyperlocal angle just because that makes it easier for people to say yes to being on your show. And they'll appreciate you giving them a forum to talk about what they're passionate about and what they love. When it comes to guesting on a podcast, awesome strategy, but it's part of a strategy. It's part of an overarching content and marketing strategy. Because if you're going to be a guest on a podcast and you're doing that for exposure, expect people to search for you. And when they do, they better be able to find you. And they better be able to find you in a meaningful way.
And what they find better match with the personality that they saw on the podcast.
That's right. And they might not be able to find you where they want to be able to find you. That's something to take into consideration too. If they search for you on Google, you have to have a landing page that shows up. If they search for you on LinkedIn or Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or whatever, they're going to search for you not where you are, but where they are, where their preferred place to search for people is, where their preferred platform is. And if you're not showing up on those platforms, they might not be able to find you. So podcast guesting is great once you're already showing up, because you're going to have somewhere to point people to.
Donna?
What was the question? Podcast. Yes. Sorry.
Welcome
Being
back.
the last one, I forget. Oh no, I was there. I was listening to the entire thing. I just forgot what the exact question was, but no, I'm good. I remember it now. All right. So I agree with what James and Mike said.
God, you're
It's-
so boring, Donna.
I know.
100% or just most of it?
No, or we just, well, in this case, 100%.
Okay.
And you do have to commit fully to it. It's not easy lining up guests though. So I work with, I work at NFM, and I also have Rebel Chick Media. I work on Greg Share's one-on-one show.
Who?
And so,
Who was that?
funny.
Greg
So, 130th FinTech Friday podcast for Brian View. Yay. So we have to line up a new guest every single week. And it takes time to do that, right? To reach out to people, to make sure that you have a new guest every week. I mean, I'm not telling anybody something that they don't already know, but you have to be consistent. You have to make sure you're on schedule. You have to make sure that you've got people lined up, and you don't want just people you want exciting people that are going to draw attention. But I also like the point that you made, Mike, about look at it as a relationship builder for yourself. So don't worry about necessarily your audience. I love that. I never thought of it from that perspective before. So thank you for bringing that up. I love
My
it.
pleasure. And don't discount your own thoughts and opinions. Like when you're first starting a podcast, don't rely on having a guest. Just get
That's
in front
one of my
the camera.
biggest regrets.
Get in front of the camera and
with my
start
last
talking.
podcast.
Pull headlines that you want to comment on.
Mm-hmm.
Things that are happening in your own life. It doesn't have to be long. 5-minute
Yep.
episode, 10-minute episode, 15-minute episode. Let
Mhm.
that build your foundation. And then when you have a guest, it's an event. It's a special thing. And then if that evolves into guests becoming more easily to secure, and then you're a conversation show with a guest every time, great. But if you build on your own, then you're not reliant on a guest
true.
to have an episode.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. I have listened to many that are just a single person hosting a podcast, and I've
Mhm.
loved them.
Mhm.
And so I've actually wanted to do my own podcast, and I've not done it. I actually recorded one and was like, I'm not doing this again. It would have required way too many edits, but now obviously I feel way more comfortable doing something like that. So I might have to revisit that. But in one without even having anything to do with the industry. And then I've thought about doing something with the industry. So it's something that I think people should consider doing if they have a passion for it. But if you don't feel passionate about it, then obviously don't even bother.
Just don't like do some soul searching before you dip your toe in the water
Yeah,
of podcasting,
absolutely.
because I mean, when it comes, as it pertains to everything, podcasting included, ideas are easy, execution is not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So really get into the weeds of what it's going to take to commit to and execute that thing. Kyle, you just mentioned you had a big regret. What was that?
Yeah, well, so I had 2 podcasts that didn't make it to 10 episodes. So I fit in the data, right?
Mhm.
My 3rd podcast, I did 152 episodes. And it was pretty successful for what my goals were. But my biggest regret was out of 152 episodes, only about 5 or 6 of them were me by myself.
Oh, interesting.
So though the viewership was good and the relationship aspect of it was great, because I had guests on almost all the episodes and I'd earned business from people inside of their sphere, I looked back and went, man, like I never got the chance to showcase my talent
Mhm.
because I was just asking questions and letting them fill most of the time slot, you know?
Mhm.
And so I if I did it different, I would do more solo episodes or do more of a co-host where it's 2 people bantering, not one person treating the other as the guest of honor
Mhm.
and letting them do most of the talking.
Well, in that vein, Kyle's been asking too many questions, not giving enough perspective. So Kyle,
Yes.
I love
we
it.
are we are more than halfway through November. We're coming up on some holidays here pretty soon. From now until the end of the year is basically less than a month for the vast majority of mortgage people.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't be counting this year as complete. And we definitely need to be thinking about 2025 more than most of us probably are. Hit me with it, Coach Kyle. What do we need to be doing to make sure that we don't start 2025 on the snide? Like, we want to come out of the gate strong instead of sluggish.
Yeah, I want to actually take this a different way than you guys might think I will answer it. So I don't want to call it the year of the gimmick because that's not my thing. But I was looking at TikTok. Well, I look at TikTok every day, and I'm watching what's trending and trying to analyze why I think it's that way. And right now, there's this hand grip machine that's trending on TikTok. I don't know if y'all have come across any of these videos, and people are taking them to family events. And I promise you there's a point and an answer, Mike, to your question. And so they're videoing family members at their dinner, like testing their grip strength. And, you know, they're making fun of them if it's not very strong, and they're praising them if it's really strong. And so I bought one today on TikTok because what I'm going to do in 2025 is I'm going to take it to the events that I speak at, and then I'm going to make behind the scenes content of people trying this grip strength thing. And my hope is, aside from the content I already create, which is very value adding, hopefully, people will begin to go, man, I hope Kyle's coming to my city soon, because I've been seeing those videos and like I feel like I'd be really strong. And my hope is that it creates people's desire to want to be where I am, in hopes that they can be a part of those videos. And so I guess the reason I told that story is I want 2025 for people to be about having fun with your content. Like, most people have already spent years overthinking it, overanalyzing, and therefore they've probably taken very little action. And they hear people like us give tips and tricks, and all four of us take advantage of this in a different way, and we have different ideas and opinions. And I think most people just end up stuck. And so I want 2025 to be the year of fun. Like, just show up in a fun way, right? Who wouldn't love to see a spinoff series of Mike asking people who their favorite Marvel character is? And again, not everybody's going to love it, but I think it would exude a different passion than we've seen from you.
Yeah.
Because that's a personal passion that doesn't always lend itself over into the professional side, other than it's represented in the background. And so I don't know what that looks like for everybody, but I think if people would let themselves have fun and not put so much pressure on the performance side, that they'll look up and go, holy crap, I did 100 videos this year. And it was because they figured out how to have fun and not make it so much about, well, how many deals did that bring? And how many conversations did that start? So
I love that. One of the things that I preach most heavily is that if you're going to show up, because people want to know what does it mean to show up in a meaningful way, right? You add something to someone's day. If someone watches or reads your piece of content and leaves a better human being, period. If all that is a smile, you've done your job.
Yeah.
Like, if you can bring one extra smile to someone's day, you've done your job. And I like that with the hand grip thing, Kyle. I like me asking people who their favorite superhero is. What superpower do you wish you would have? Those will probably induce some smiles, and we can add some things to somebody's day. At the very least, if they got nothing, if they retain nothing about what you do as a professional or what you do to earn a living, what they do retain is that you're the person that made me smile. So I'm
Yeah.
going to pay attention to you again tomorrow.
Well, and let me add this real fast for my reasoning. I at least I believe this to be true about myself. I think I'm really funny when I'm on stage, when I'm live with people. Like my humor is very witty and in the moment, right? It's not planned. Well, if you didn't know me and you just went and watched my videos, none of them are funny because I don't know how to be funny in a pre-planned video when my funny is based on witty. And so my hope is that using these hand grips, it'll allow me to showcase like more of who I naturally am that doesn't always come across in my video content. And so, you know, that's kind of the thought behind it, because it's truly been a struggle for me for 5 years going, my videos are so boring. They're not funny and I'm freaking hilarious. And so it's been a struggle in my, you know, evolution of my personal brand when I'm such a different personality on stage than I am in front of the camera. And so we're going to see if this is going to kind of help that melding of the
And
two.
I wouldn't call it a gimmick. Call it a calling card.
Calling card. I like it.
It's a calling card, not a
Yeah.
gimmick. But be careful. Like everybody who's looking for trends and stuff to follow out there. I saw a really interesting video this morning from Chris Do over at The Future. Love him, one of my favorite creators. And he was talking about the difference between trends and fads. And like trends are, you know, people paying more attention to video content, empathy in business, you know, just being a good human being and showcasing things like that. Like these are trends. These are things that will last for quite some time. You know what I mean? The rise of AI and tech in lending and how that's shaping you know, fads are like, you know, bell bottoms. They might not age very well, you know. So if you want to follow a trend, follow those trends, but pay attention to them, because if you're trying to build a long-term strategy around a trend and it turns out to be a fad, it might not age that well.
And obviously I'm wrong. I'm hilarious in all my videos.
You're hilarious. You're hilarious in person too.
All right.
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah, I was going to say final word.
Because apparently it's boring, but I'm still going to add this. So I had to look up the TikTok hand grip that you've been talking about, because I'm like, I haven't seen this at all. So it's just, for any of you that haven't seen it like me, it's just the old school forearm exerciser that's been around forever.
Yeah, just test your grip strength.
Spring. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's an exerciser though. Like,
you know, my hope is like with all the big players in our industry that we can get this trend going of like,
oh no, I love the idea.
Grip strength going to be what can Brian View do? What can Amir Syed pull on this thing? Like, I
love the idea. But
we'll come back next year and see if it was a failure or success.
What new invention did they come up with and are trying to sell on TikTok now? But it's just the old school forearm exercise device.
JD, final thought of the day, and then we're ending this thing.
Final thought of the day. I'm going to go with Farachi's question and kind of dovetail onto your answer, and that is look for the opportunities, not necessarily to reinvent yourself or look for whatever new shiny tool, fad, trend exists in the tech world to adopt, but just figure out what it is. Start with figuring out what actually is your value proposition. And if you need help on that, ask your clients, ask your referral partners, tell them, why do you like working with me? And or ask them that question and be ready to take notes. They'll probably start off with, oh, you return my phone calls. That's not the kind of answer that you're looking for. You want to go deeper than that. And so figure out what it is that your value proposition is, because you don't need a new logo. You don't need a new, if you're not using Mortgage Coach, well,
dang it. We didn't talk enough about logos.
Do what?
We should have talked more about logos.
Oh, that's a whole other episode. Don't even start it. But no, I mean, stop thinking that just because, our CEO is fond of saying the grass is not always greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it.
That's right.
Focus on the resources that you have at your disposal right now. What helps figure out what it is that helps you to stand out from your competition, and double down on that and figure out a way to do that. I popped a comment in one last little note about podcasting. I'm not going to regurgitate it now, but yeah, it was a long comment.
Man, that's a lot of screen, James.
That is a lot of screen.
Get that off of there, man. It's
Get cut off.
it's locking down. So no, if you want a quick tip on on whether or not podcasting is right for you, try that first. If it resonates, great. Then maybe starting a podcast would be a good strategy for you. But
Hey, how do people connect with each of you? What's the best way?
LinkedIn would be the best one for me.
Absolutely. That's my
Same.
digital home. Hit me up on
That's
LinkedIn.
it.
Same.
Guys, I
I
love
gave
y'all.
up my final thoughts for the hand gripper.
No, give it. You finish it. Let the lady finish.
All right. So I would say, especially with video, don't overthink it. Just go video it. But please don't do the up the nose shot. I posted a video about that. That's the shot I despise the most. I hate it. Go check out my video. Grab like a stand, like just a $20, $30 stand and just a little, oh, don't do it. Don't do it. Please don't do it.
I
And
like it,
just
Kyle. That's
a
beautiful.
little light. You know, that's all you need in your phone and you're good, but just don't do the up the nose shots, please.
I like it. I think they're great.
I'll keep that as my final thought since James had a great one.
Hey,
Mine will be funny.
I appreciate y'all so much for being a part of this. Thank you for saying
Thank
yes to the
you.
book. What an impact each of you are having. And it's an honor to be a part of your journey, to watch your journey, and to see y'all serve people. And so appreciate you guys. Thanks to everybody
Thank
watching.
you.
If somehow you don't have the green book, go get it.
Right?
What are you thinking? Go buy it for yourself for Christmas. And we'll
How's the
see y'all
audio
back
version coming, Kyle?
next week? It's coming.
Let's go.
So we should
Let's
have.
go. I know we got
the
paperback
audio-
and hardback now. We
Yeah,
need that,
the,
need that audio version.
audio version. The goal is that January 1, it will be available to people. So
Nice.
that's what we're shooting for. So y'all hold me accountable.
And Heather just piped in with one more comment. She wants to see more nostrils. Maybe that
No,
needs to
she
be the
doesn't.
2025 calling card.
More.
And
Heather
then
does
girls.
not. She saw
Yeah.
my video. She knows. She's being
Donna is
funny.
going to
Yes.
have to stay away from all social media platforms because we're going to get the entire industry showing off their nostrils next year.
This
No.
is derailing quickly. So I'm
See
gonna
what
end this
happens when we
stream.
go over?
Bye, everybody.
Bye.